staff to create meaningful webinars that are important for today's teachers. This webinar today will cover how best to implement the ELA instructional shifts in order to meet the demands of the Common Core State Standards. And we will also discuss how to integrate the ELA instructional shifts while helping students build content knowledge, increase academic vocabulary, and enhance their ability to cite evidence in complex text. Before we go on, I want to do a little bit of housekeeping items here. Your phones will be placed on mute, and that's just to provide the best audio possible. There will be a questions and answer session at the end of the webinar. In the meantime, if you do have a question, please write it in the question box at the right of your screen in the control panel. I will read the questions at the end of the webinar and answer them to the best of my ability. Today we are going to look at the powerful change ahead, how teachers can support student independence, what are the instructional shifts for ELA, and then pulling it all together. So let's get started. What is the most powerful change happening in today's classrooms? Well, it includes making student engagement central to teaching and learning. Developing students' independence is a central emphasis of the Common Core State Standards. It means changing the way educators develop curriculum, plan instruction, select resources, teach, assess, and meet the needs of individual students. How can we do this? How can we achieve this? Let's look at some of these ways. To support student independence, teachers need to transition from the traditional instructional role of the teacher to the role of facilitator. This means moving from didactic teaching to questioning and leading meaningful discussions in partnership with the students, who are also asking questions and engaging in dialogue. In this move to facilitation, teachers will need to focus instruction on larger overarching concepts, use essential questions that will assist in focusing these concepts, give students opportunities to reflect, discuss, apply concepts, and support their understanding with evidence gathered from text. And lastly, but not lastly, but enhance learning through rich conversation. Let's look a little deeper at each of these. An example of how teachers can focus on a larger concept in teaching is by teaching the topics of the Common Core State Standards ELA reading topics, such as key ideas and details, craft and structure, integration of knowledge and ideas, and range of reading and level of text complexity. Here is an example of a chapter opener, or 3 chapter openers for 3 reading units. The first is a reading informational text unit covering the standards under the topic of key ideas and details. Then reading informational text looking at craft and structure. The next unit opener is reading informational text and focusing on integration of knowledge and ideas. Usually the 4th topic in the reading strand, which is range of text complexity, is covered throughout the selected text that you bring into your classroom. To support student independence, teachers should also use essential questions that will assist students to focus on these larger concepts. This essential question at the beginning of the unit asks, how can authors present informational text effectively? In the unit, The students will study each of the standards that come under this topic of craft and structure and will learn how an author uses their craft and structure of writing to write effective informational text. Students should also come back to the essential question, ready to answer it, and of course, use evidence from the text in their answer. To support their independence, teachers need to give students opportunities to reflect, discuss, apply concepts, and support their understanding with evidence from the text. The Common Core State Standards want students to stay with the text when teaching the standards. In this case, distinguishing points of view. Teachers should bring in texts that address that standard and allow students to reflect on the text, participate in small group discussions related to the text, apply the concept of distinguishing points of view, and support points of view with evidence. Here we have the teaching of the standard points of view using the instructional model, the gradual release of responsibility, guided instruction, guided practice, and then the independent practice, always following the path to student independence. Here is an example of a question for students to reflect and use the text to cite evidence in their answer. The author gives many reasons to care about droughts. With a partner, discuss which reasons you think are best at making you share his point of view. Why are these reasons so effective? Another question. What should people be doing about droughts in this author's point of view? List as many of the author's specific recommendations as you can. Teachers also need to enhance learning through rich conversations. Students will gain independence through watching you model rich conversations and by giving them the tools to prepare and practice meaningful conversations. Here is an activity that asks the students to think about the essential question and respond to several questions, supporting their answer with reasons and experience. They will then come to the small group discussion prepared with their thoughts clear and outlined. The essential question is, how do writers support their opinions? They have several questions to answer. And then this graphic organizer helps students organize their thoughts and prepare for the small group discussion. Preparation is very important for all of us. So why don't we start with our students and help our students come prepared for discussions. More ways to help students develop independence includes teachers to encourage independence by having students become more responsible for their learning. Integrating technology into instruction. Establishing high expectations for all students. And the use of performance-based assessment. Let's take a deeper look. With this generation of tech-savvy students, it is essential for students' success and engagement that you help them effectively use technology to improve and produce their writings, enhance their presentations and discussions, and better understand the text they've read. By you embracing technology, teaching students how to navigate online, and providing tools for students to critically assess and evaluate online resources, you'll prepare your students for their continued education and work in a digital society that values collaboration, innovation, creativity, critical thinking, problem solving, and research, of course. Here is an example of how a teacher can help students with extending the learning to the web. Also, it's important to involve parents with a Home Connect site with activities extending the learning to the home. And of course, online resources for teachers make it easy to use and assign technology lessons in the classroom. We must provide more opportunities for students to engage in more rigorous tasks, raising the expectations for all students. Here are some ways to do that. Reading more complex text, constructing arguments, integrating technology, and employing the conventions of standard English. The use of performance-based assessments is useful to both the student and the teacher. Students will understand better what they need to know and what they already know. Teachers will be able to make adjustments in their instruction to meet the needs of individual students. This quote from Albert Einstein may help you understand the change that needs to happen in today's classroom. The world as we have created it is a process of our thinking. It cannot be changed without changing our thinking. To support teachers to meet the expectations of creating independent thinkers and learners, we need to look at the instructional shifts they need to incorporate in their instruction. You may be familiar with the 6 instructional shifts on the left or the 3 instructional shifts on the right. The 3 shifts are just the 6 rolled into 3. This chart helps to explain that. Let's go through each one of these shifts to better understand them. The first is the balancing of informational and literary text. A solid and effective Common Core program should cover all of the instructional shifts and 100% of the Common Core State Standards while supporting the teacher and the student. Teachers should feel confident about the text selection and that the balance of informational and literary text is being met. For instance, when you're reading for key ideas and detail standards, you're reading literature and you're reading informational text. When you're teaching the standards for crafts and structure, you incorporate both literary text and informational text. And also the standards for integration of knowledge and ideas, you want to bring in literary text and informational text. The second shift is in the knowledge in the disciplines. Knowledge in the disciplines help students build knowledge about the world through text rather than teacher experience or activity. So be sure to bring in text that help the students explore the world across the content areas or the domains. Students should engage in rich and rigorous evidence-based conversations about text. Students' response to questions should be text-based and should cite evidence from the text when answering questions, as one does when comparing and contrasting text. Students should begin to think critically and look back to the text for answers and evidence. For instance, when reading about mammoths, this text-based question is, what animal that is alive today is like a mammoth? How are they alike and different? Use details from the text as a basis for your answer. Another text-based question. How would scientists clone Lyuba? Why are some scientists sure they can do this? By what date? Use information directly from the text in your answer. The fourth shift is writing from sources. Writing should emphasize use of evidence from sources to inform the reader or make an argument. Teachers should ask students to respond to questions and cite evidence from the text. Students should also write about a topic related to the text, incorporating the facts and citing evidence from a variety of sources. In this case, in a close read, which is a longer, lengthier piece, students are expected to go back and find answer to text-dependent questions, but they're also expected to write their answers and use the source, use the text in their answer. For instance, what details in the text support the idea that this was the greatest event in Carter's life? Another example of writing from sources. Think about the events described in Rachel Carson. What happened after Rachel Carson published The Sea Around Us? Write 2 or 3 paragraphs describing what you think might have happened to Rachel Carson next. Use ideas and facts from the text to help your writing. The 6th shift in the instructional shifts for English language arts pertains to the staircase of complexity. Students read grade-appropriate text around which instruction is centered. Teachers need to be patient, create more time and space, and support in the curriculum for closer reading. When incorporating close reading, be sure not to front-load the information to the student. Let them discover the text. Giving them time to respond to the text-based questions by rereading as many times as possible. We have to remember, excuse me, when students go and take exams, standardized tests, we are not there standing next to them when it's a lengthier piece or a complex piece. So we have to not introduce this close reading. We have them go into this close reading with the information they already have gained from previous readings. Academic vocabulary, our last shift. Students constantly build the transferable vocabulary they need to access grade-level complex text. This can be done effectively by spiraling light content in increasingly complex text. Academic vocabulary is introduced and reviewed to support students' reading of complex text. The vocabulary words should be embedded in the text so students can determine meaning from the words in the text. So let's pull this all together, the changes, the instructional shifts, and our classroom experience. First, let's choose a large overarching concept, such as key ideas and details, and incorporate the balance of text, both literary and informational text. Then, look at the essential questions. This is going to help students focus on the large overarching concepts that they will be studying. With you as the facilitator of the classroom, you will need to support students in their reading of complex text, their response to text-dependent questions, and guide students' discussions requiring good reasoning and evidence to support their points of view. Thinking of questions can be challenging. Here are a few examples of good questions that keep the students with the text and require them to use details from the text used as their evidence in their answers. For instance, think about what you have just read. Where are most of the volcanoes in North America located and why there? Use details from the article to provide evidence for your answer. Returning to an essential question. How can readers use details to find the main idea in an informational text? In a small group or as a class, discuss the essential question. Think about what you have learned about main ideas and text evidence, about drawing inferences and explaining events and ideas, and about summarizing. Use evidence from the 4-unit text to answer the question. Performance-based assessments provide several ways students can demonstrate their understanding of the standards taught. Performance-based assessments should be used as formative and summative assessments, always allowing teachers to adjust instruction for better student success. At this time, I want to thank you for your time today to review with me the important changes happening in today's classroom. I invite you to preview Sadlier's new Common Core Progress program at www.sadlier.com/preview-CCP. At this time, I want to check the box, the question box, to see if there are any questions for me. And give me a little moment here to get this situated. This presentation will be archived. I have recorded it, so you will be getting an email with the link to the recording. Thank you for your question. Yes, this program is available. It is for grades kindergarten through 8th grade, and it is reasonably priced at $14.95 for a student book. Any more questions? Well, this has been terrific. Thank you so much. I'm going to close the question box so you can see my email address, legan@sadlier.com. I'm the Director of Literacy for Product Management. And I invite you to check out the preview site. We have our preview there, you can take a look through the program. This is a very exciting time for us as teachers. We wanted to get the right questions, materials out to the students and teachers, our colleagues, that we can. So with your help and your comments, I would appreciate any feedback that you have. So just drop me an email. Good luck with your implementation of the Common Core State Standards and the English Language Arts Instructional Shifts. If you have any questions, please feel free to contact me. Thank you again, and have a great afternoon. Bye-bye.